Welcome to Part 2 Claims Denial, our consultation webinar office hours. It's, as we normally do, we wait a couple minutes as people continue to join. We will get started in just a minute. Thanks again for joining us. I apologize if any of you logged on early. We're able to hear our background chatter. But we'll get started in just a minute. Things of attendees seem to be primarily logged on, so why don't we get started? Again, I'd like to welcome Rita Guido, who will be answering the questions that were submitted. We did have a number of questions that were submitted. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to them on the original presentation. There was a fair amount of very good, a lot of very good content, and we felt that it was important to get through there. So what we're going to do today, Rita's going to go through the questions that were received. We'll be able to answer most all of them. Based upon time, we'll be able to answer any questions that you may want to chat in during the course of the presentation. Again, if you're not seeing a chat on the lower right-hand side of the screen, there's a little ball in the upper right that says chat. Click on that chat button. In the drop-down box, please select send your questions to all panelists. I will be monitoring the questions as they come through, and if we have time, then we'll pick up those questions at the end. So I think without any further ado, we're very happy to have Rita. Rita, it's all yours. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, David. Yes, this is Rita Guido from Computer Sciences. I'm the Outreach Supervisor and a Regional Representative for Central and Northern New York State. I'm here to try to answer some of the questions that were posed during the last session and that have been emailed in. I'm going to start and take them in order in which they were received. Right now, the first question that we have says, how can we determine if a client is SED on e-PACES? At this point, besides two things that show up on e-PACES, I really wouldn't have any other information for you. You might need to ask OMH if there's any other way that these are recognizable. But on e-PACES, the Medicaid eligibility verification system will show the following SED information. So, for example, if you see an exception code of 23 occur, that will appear when the client is enrolled in the OMH Home and Community-Based Services Waiver for seriously emotionally disturbed SED children. You might also see a restriction exception code of 72 appear when the client is under age 21 who participates in a Bridges to Health waiver for seriously emotionally disturbed B2H/SED. So those are the only two times that I know that you can definitely identify someone as being SED. So beyond that, that might need to be asked of OMH. The next question is, can you please explain the office codes on the Medicaid batch clearance? For example, the code CWP or H78. The code CWP, I think we would need more information, like an example of where you're seeing that, because I don't recognize that as a code. So I'd want to see more information. So you could contact us with that. But the code H78 is returned if the patient has their Medicaid coverage, their eligibility given to them through the New York Health Benefit Exchange rather than through one of the local districts like the County Department of Social Services. So when clients have obtained their Medicaid coverage through the exchange, then you're going to see the H78 appear. And it should display following the county code in the office, the 3-digit office code field. The next question we have is, will CTAC and or CSC be offering any trainings on ICD-10 coding? And the answer to that question is, at this point, CSC doesn't have any ICD-10 coding sessions planned. What we do have is information posted all over the eMedNI website. When you first sign on to the eMedNI website, you'll get a big pop-up about whether you're ready or not. And when you go to the ICD-10 link there, you'll see all the material that has been posted from New York State Medicaid and CSC. So you'll find frequently asked questions and link to ICD-10 coding resources and the information that you're going to need regarding how your billing might change come October. So that's what I can tell you about us. David, anything you want to say about CTAC?
At the current period, we don't have anything on the agenda for training. We will be putting together our fall presentations shortly, and we'll be letting we'll certainly, if that's going to be on the docket, we'll be informing folks.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next we have a question. It says, we occasionally receive denials from Medicaid with the denial reason that states duplicate of previously processed claim or line. When we check ePACE's claim status, there is no paid claim for the date. What should we do to get paid? Well, you get a duplicate of previously processed claim denial when we see that there's a denial in the history, or a paid claim in the history. So the remittance statement itself should have the history claim that's causing this denial. So you should be able, when you look at your remittance statement, you should be able to see that the claim that you're now sending is denied, and it should reference what it's conflicting up against. As far as the fact that you can't see it on ePACES, I think that might require some more specific information from the provider, such as like a transaction control number, the big 16-digit number we assign. And we also can't, from this conversation, from this question, can't really see how you tried to check for this information in ePACES. So sometimes you won't find information in ePACES because of the data that you're using to do the search, like the provider ID number you signed in under, or maybe you got very specific in your request and gave them information incorrectly in your request when you check through ePACES. So the bottom line here is your remittance statement should tell you the history of the claim that caused the denial. The next question was, when a modifier is required by a primary payer and is not needed for Medicaid as a secondary payer, how should this be handled? When you submit a claim, if the modifier is not required by Medicaid for Medicaid claim processing, we'll simply ignore it if you do send it to us. The next question is, please explain what revenue codes are and which are appropriate for Article 31 clinics. Some Medicaid HMOs are requiring revenue codes that they say were determined by the state. I can't speak for what the Medicaid HMOs are requiring of you, so that's something you may have to get some more specifics on and maybe contact OMH. But the revenue codes, just as a general statement, the revenue codes are needed on 837 institutional formatted claims that are sent, and the revenue codes are found through the National Uniform Billing Coding Structure, the NUBC. So claims that are submitted with invalid revenue codes will be rejected during the pre-adjudication phase, so they won't even show up. And when I say invalid, they're revenue codes that don't exist within the NUBC coding structure. So those claims won't even come through to us and won't appear on a remit. But there are limited circumstances where you might need a specific revenue code to bill Medicaid, such as in deriving a particular specialty code like Specialty Code 964, which requires the use of revenue code 0513, or to derive a specialty code of 924, which uses revenue code 0911. Next is, what happens to the fact that one could submit a Medicaid claim for up to 2 years? Well, the policy on timely filing really has not changed with regard to the 90-day and the 2-year rules. What has changed is the fact that the timely filing rules are being enforced through a number of edits that have been implemented and phased in since 2010. So what I would need a provider to do to really get up to speed on this would be to go to the emedme.org website under timely billing information, and we'll go to that a little later in the presentation. I'll open that up for you. But that's where you would need to go. So that policy has not changed. They just simply are enforcing the rules now. So you have up to 2 years to get the claim in and paid. The 90-day windows, you have 90 days to submit the claim to Medicaid initially. If you do have a claim that is over 90 days old, you would need to submit that 90-day-old claim with a timely filing reason. And again, it needs to have been submitted within submitted and paid with a timely filing reason within that 2-year time frame. The next question that we received is, often the info in e-PACES is not current and months later an additional coverage appears, or an additional coverage continues to appear months after it was terminated. It is often very difficult to get paid by either payer. Also, when date of birth is incorrect on e-PACES, Medicaid, it takes a long time for it to be fixed. What do we do with these claims? Continue billing for denials until issue is resolved. If we hold the claims, they will be untimely. So, I mean, one part of this is related to, you know, the information that's being displayed on e-PACES. The actual local DSS or the Welfare Management System, Department of Health, the exchange, all of that information that ends up in e-PACES is originating through those sources, through the local DSS, through the HR in New York City and the exchange, the healthcare exchange. So in order to get that information corrected, really the patient or their families would have to, you know, initiate that change at whatever level that information was originated. So whether it be the local DSS or the exchange itself. So I hope that helps answer that question. The next one is, at times we are being denied due to Medicaid being processed through the exchange instead of a waiver child, no parental deeming. We are not able to receive our approval letter due to this delay. What method can we use in order to recoup for services due to error on part of HRA? I think we would need more information on this particular question, such as a transaction control number from a denied claim in order to research this to find out what the denial reason was. I think we would need more data. So whoever submitted that claim, I think we would need more information to try to assist you. The next question is, edit 152. Do we check that on the e-PACES website? So edit 152 is the edit that states the recipient file indicates there is Medicare, but no Medicare is present. That's indicating that the client has Medicare on file, but the Medicare data was not placed on the claim that was submitted to Medicaid. You can use ePaces to verify that client's eligibility, and it will show if the client has Medicare or has their Medicare through a Medicare Advantage plan, or whether they have other insurance. So, yes, ePaces can be used to check eligibility and find out if there is Medicare and what type on file for that particular patient. If we have a client that has Medicaid and Medicare, but our clinic does not accept Medicare, can we just bill Medicaid? For this question, I think you're going to have to maybe contact OMH or wait to see what gets posted. I think OMH or DOH is going to have to weigh in on this one. It's talking about the clinic not accepting Medicare. And I think what you're leaning towards is the notion of zero filling your claim. But typically, you know, providers would need to bill Medicare first or participate with them. But I think I'm going to defer to Gwen, because I think she talked a little bit about this in certain instances during her presentation, the first presentation. But I think this one we're going to defer on. The next question, it says, please explain the zero fill procedure for billing dual eligibles for professional staff who are not eligible to be Medicare providers. And again, I think this is going to have to be deferred to Gwen Diamond at Office of Mental Health. And but I'll say this regarding zero filling. If it's allowable, if you are allowed to do that to zero, if they tell you that you can zero fill in that instance, when you zero fill a claim, basically what it means is that you're telling us that there is this other insurance by giving us another insurance payer record, and you're telling us the total charged amount would have to go in the total non-covered charge field on the other payer record in the 837 institutional claim. So you basically would need to tell us, yes, I know there's this other insurance and it's not paying me the entire amount of money that I'm asking for. So there's a specific field that you would put the total charges in related to the other payer section. How often is ePaces updated? And again, this is similar to one of the earlier questions we talked about. Somebody's saying that I know that sometimes insurances are listed on the ePaces sheet, and they're older insurances, and they have to be billed before Medicaid can even be billed if the client no longer has the insurance. Yeah, again, it's very similar to the earlier question about ePaces and the file data that's there. And basically, it is the responsibility of the local DSS or WMS, Welfare Management System, or Department of Health to maintain that client information that's on file that you see on ePaces. So if there is any delay in the process, you'd need to address that with those agencies. Next question here. It says, for edit reason 00131, if the third party does not pay, will Medicaid cover this? I think really the answer to this depends on why the third party insurance isn't paying. When the claims come through, you know, I'll give you a short answer. When the claims come to us from you, if you've billed the other insurance and you've received an explanation of benefits from them, you would be showing us the amount they paid or that they didn't pay you something, and you'd be showing us, if they returned an ELB to you, you'd be showing us what we call the claim adjustment reason codes. So things like, is there patient responsibility, and if so, what kind of patient responsibility remains? Or is there a contractual obligation? Is there some other adjustment? All of those pieces of data should be coming back to you on the explanation of benefits from the other payer, and you're supposed to turn around and send that information to us. Those codes would map to information about whether or not we're going to pay you or not, you know. So in part it depends on what you're telling us on the claim, I guess is really what it comes down to, and what you were told by the other payer. if another insurance, if you've got documentation that another insurance doesn't cover a particular service, and you can document this, then, and you're not billing them, then you might be zero filling the claim and telling us that, there's this other insurance, but it doesn't cover what I do, and you'd be putting the information in the total non-covered charge field within the other payer record. But again, this all hinges on exactly what happened when and what the scenario was with the other insurance. Next question is, how do you batch client eligibility? So in order to submit eligibility requests through some method other than ePaces or the touch-tone phone or the swipe machine, the credit card-like looking machine where you swipe the client's card, there is a way to send the files electronically to us. It would require you to have some software or have someone else send it via their software to create a transaction called a 270 transaction, and then the response file for that eligibility inquiry would be the 271 response. We do have information on the emedney.org website for people who are looking into getting set up to do that. So you should refer to the emedney.org website, and you have to seek out vendor software or some other mechanism to do that. The next question is, could you tell me when we can expect to see the frequently asked questions for Billing 101 training consultation from July 10th? So that question, I think, David, you told me that was going to be by the end of the day next Friday, correct?
That's correct. We've compiled the answers. We'll also be compiling the answers to the questions that Rita is answering today. And also, Rita, there's a couple other questions that have been coming through as you've been talking, so we'll try to get to those also. The answers to both sets of questions will be posted on the CTAC website by the end of the business day a week from today. There is also, we anticipate that same frequently asked questions will be posted to the OMH website also. I do believe that we're going to attempt to have those posted by the end of the day next Friday also.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the next one we have here says, the patient has Medicaid with an HMO. The patient has no substance abuse diagnosis. The HMO says to bill Medicaid because the patient is on SSI. Can Medicaid be billed with a mental health diagnosis if we are an outpatient substance abuse clinic? I think I'd want more detail. I think this is one you might want to provide some more specific detail and send it on with the provider name and some of the claim information involved to Gwen Diamond and see. I think that may involve having somebody from OMH or OASIS or Managed Care try to assist with that particular question. The next question we have says, on replacement claims with more than one line, does the TCN need to be on both lines or only on the line that was paid? Well, what you have to remember about the claims is that there's only one place on a claim to put a transaction control number. So if your claim has multiple claim lines, you're only putting the transaction control number when you try to do a replacement. You're only putting the transaction control number on there once. So that's going to appear once on the replacement claim. But any of the claim lines that you needed to be paid for need to appear on that replacement claim. So, for instance, if you only billed with one, let's say you only billed with two claim lines initially, and we paid you, and now you're trying to replace the claim and tell us, no, there was a third claim line. You'd need to show all three claim lines on this replacement claim. The next question, how can I use this information for care coordination? I think that whoever wrote that question would need to further clarify. If you're on the line and want to try to type in the question, we can try to look at it at the end of the session, but I'm not sure what you're actually asking there. The next one says, any recommendations for where to purchase an insurance card scanner reader or other ways of also checking Medicare and commercial insurance eligibility every visit as well? You know, we don't, at CSC, we don't recommend where you should purchase the POS devices, these, what other people call it the swipe machine, we call it a POS device. The one right now is a VX, like Victor X-ray, VX570, and we don't recommend where to purchase that. We don't provide it, the device itself. So you'd have to do some searching on your own for that. But another popular way to check Medicaid eligibility would be to use ePaces. So if you were using ePaces, you would see the same information you would see on the swipe machine, on the POS device, card scanner reader. So there's also additional information in the provider manual under MEVS, the Medicaid Eligibility Verification System. You can find out about other methods of checking eligibility, but ePaces is one of them, so you might want to think about that. If you're asking about this strictly because you want to check on, you know, a person's Medicare eligibility, not necessarily Medicaid, what Medicaid says about the person, but you're trying to go out and check on Medicare or other insurances and look things up on about their particular sites, that I wouldn't know. But we do return whether the person has Medicare or a commercial insurance on our ePaces or MEVS information, no matter what way you transmit it to us. The next question is, what is an example of all claim lines paying zero? There are several reasons that all claim lines on a claim could pay zero. One of the most common reasons would be that the APG grouper, the ambulatory patient grouper, sees that all the procedure codes that you've listed on your claim are designated as standalone never pay. So it could be something like that, that there's not something else on the claim that would allow us to pay that claim. The next one is, when I emailed our CSC rep with a question, the email was returned as undeliverable. Can you please provide the contact information for the Western New York CSC regional rep? What you should do, we did have a change in staff out in Western New York, so we do have a new rep in the area. What I would do is contact the eMedNY call center at 800-343-9000 for assistance. They may be able to answer your question right away. But if you do need additional assistance or training, the regional rep her name is Ann Potler. She can be, the call center can place a training request to our provider services outreach staff, and she would be able to respond to you. So I would start out by going through the 800-343-9000 number if you need assistance, and then put in a request for your regional rep through them. The next, and that goes for, actually, I'm going to back up. That goes for any region. So if you know, depending on where you are, if you do have issues that you feel need additional, you know, more time than can be given on at the call center or much more detailed, you can request training or you know, a meeting with the regional representative, and we can talk you through, you know, what the issue is and figure out if it's something we can handle on the phone or through a WebEx individually with you, or if we would need to meet with you. So those are definitely available for everyone who's out there. The next question that we have is going back to the timely filing issues. And this one says, could you please let me know what over 90-day code we should use now that delay reason code 7 is invalid? On our remittances, The denial is listed as edit 2162, delay reason code 7, third-party processing delay invalid. Well, basically, if you get a denial that's related to timely filing, you should really go back through the list of all of the timely filing reasons that are out there. That information you're going to need to refer to the emending.org website, and we'll show you where in a minute, to determine the appropriate delay reason. The state did some training sessions on this, and within their frequently asked questions, one of the questions was, who could they ask about figuring out which reason to use? And basically what the state said was, it is the provider's responsibility to determine the appropriate delay reason, and if any reason applies, to report it with the claim. And then they gave references to other documentation within the provider manual, within the March 2012 Medicaid update. So, you really have to know a lot of detail about what happened with that claim. So you have to, first you have to know the history of the claim and the timing of all the events that took place. And then you have to go through those timely filing reasons and read through the reasons and how they tell you you're supposed to use them, because they do give some specifics and some examples there. So I would definitely look over the information in the information for all providers in the general billing section, where it describes the timely filing rules in detail, as well as the PowerPoint and the frequently asked questions that the health department posted in that same section, because they get very detailed about how each of those should be used. And then you really have to ask yourself the question, okay, delay reason code 1 says this. Okay, is this what happened here? And if it isn't, then you can't use that reason. It's really more of a process of elimination. And frankly, there are going to be times where you may not find another reason that's going to work for you. You may have gotten to the point where you're not going to be able to submit and receive payment for that claim. I think being well informed about how those reasons work and when you're supposed to use them is really important, and knowing the history of the claim that you're dealing with. The next question is very similar. Says, would you please explain the difference between Medicaid delay reason codes 1 and 8 and appropriate usage? Specifically, we see clients that switch back and forth between fee-for-service Medicaid and Medicaid managed care. What is the appropriate delay reason code in those circumstances? Well, number one, check eligibility each and every time somebody comes into your office. You should be able to catch those times where they've switched between straight Medicaid and Medicaid managed care up front, and then you'll know who you're supposed to be billing right away. Delay reason code 1, when you look that code up, it states that is described as eligibility unknown or unavailable. And the frequently asked questions that the state put out related to this talk about this. And it says that the beneficiary's eligibility status is unknown or unavailable on the date of service due to the beneficiary not informing the provider of eligibility. So this type of thing will deny, if you try to use delay reason 1, okay, saying the eligibility is unknown, it's going to deny for edit 2157 if we see a claim previously submitted by the same provider for the same beneficiary. So you have to think about this in terms of, did I ever know that this client, Medicaid ID number, this client had coverage at some point in time? Did I try to bill Medicaid? Did I verify eligibility and find out that they had coverage? All of that kind of thing. So if there's any history of that, then this is going to be this reason won't work. So basically they're saying that if we do see a previously submitted claim in history for a particular patient from that particular provider, that means to the Medicaid system that the patient was already known to the provider. So if you'd send in any additional claims after that, then delay reason code 1 is not going to work. Delay reason code 8 says there's a delay in the client eligibility determination. And that would be valid when the beneficiary's eligibility date or something about their coverage has changed or was backdated due to some type of eligibility determination administrative delay or an appeal or a fair hearing or a litigation. So delay reason 8 makes sense if something has changed about the client's eligibility file. So if you're talking about, say, for instance, a person who has a spend down, so they didn't have coverage when you checked on them today for today's date, but, you know, a month from now they met their spend down, the county or the agency that was responsible for updating their eligibility file, you know, has done it because they've either turned in their bills or receipts or paid the county their spend down amount, and now they've made them eligible for that old date of service. The rule when you read delay reason 8, and this goes for almost all of the delay reasons, says you have 30 days from when something came under your control, you know, to turn it around and send it into Medicaid. So in this case, you know, when that client's eligibility was determined, you'd have 30 days from that date then to submit that with delay reason 8 as your late reason. Let's see, the next one. Yeah, the next question is we have challenges with e-PACEs showing Medicaid managed care eligibility when the Medicaid managed care payer is telling us the patient is SSI. What is the process to have e-PACEs updated with the correct eligibility? Again, it depends on where their coverage is coming from. So if their coverage is originating from the local DSS, you need to go back to the County Department of Social Services or New York City HRA, or if it's coming from the exchange, which you can tell by seeing the H78 appear when you check eligibility, you'd need to go, have them go back to that or entity to have their file corrected if it's incorrect. The next question that we have here, this was an additional question that we received. This one is talking about, it says, we have a few clients who have Fidelis Medicare Advantage plan starting January 2015. And let's see, it says, we requested an application from our rep November 2014. We finally received and completed the application, signed it, and submitted to Fidelis early January 2015. We were assured by Fidelis that the effective date would be the first of the year, but when finally processed, it was post-dated, and their eligibility with their enrollment with Fidelis started in May of 2015. They will not cover the services provided in good faith. Some are billable to Medicaid. These claims were rejected on the 277 for use of delay reason code 7. What code is the appropriate code if not the third-party delay? Well, the thing about the third-party delay, delay reason 7, is basically, so this question kind of comes down to a question of, okay, again, somebody's asking which delay reason code should I use? And it goes back to, you need to refer back to the timely filing information and read the description and see if the description fits. In this case, delay reason 7 can be used when you've billed the other insurance and the other insurance has responded to you and you turned around and billed us after billing them. You billed us within 30 days of receiving their EOB, telling you there's some co-insurance or deductible or something like that. So in this case, delay reason code 7 isn't going to work because they didn't give you anything showing showing that you were, a provider for them, and there's no EOB showing that you were paid, or that you billed them and got had something showing that there was some balance due. So that wouldn't work in that case. And I'm not even sure whether or not you'd be able to bill this to us in this particular scenario. So I think you'd want to get the information together, and I would say get the specifics together, whoever wrote this question, and email it or contact Gwen Diamond with your details to see if there's anything that you can do about this. The next question, let's see. And I think that's it for the list that I have in front of me, David. So I think there are some more that may have come in the chat.
Yeah, let me get over to them. I seem to have suddenly lost my questions here. 1 second. All right, 1 second. Let me get here. We'll go back here. So I think some of these questions you might have answered, but I'll go through them and then you can let us know. We have a situation when Medicaid denies for managed care, when managed care will deny, stating to send to Medicaid, and this goes in circle and nobody pays. How should we resolve this issue?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would take a close look at my claim and see whether or not, you've billed it accurately to Medicaid, and go back and read through the description of what's covered and not covered under the particular managed care plan that you're talking about. The state's website, New York State's website under managed care has a list of all the model contracts and talks about what things are and aren't covered. You can try contacting our call center. We can try to look at the claim and see if it looks like maybe you billed it incorrectly, but if it's hitting the 1172 edit saying that the managed care plan should pay and you've basically done everything else the way you should be doing on your claim, if it's not a case of, deriving a wrong specialty code, billing with a wrong zip code, because sometimes I've seen that as an issue where somebody has billed a wrong zip +4 on their clinic claim to us, and we use that in part to find information about you to see whether or not you can do a particular service at a particular site. And I have seen that be an issue. And Gwen mentioned that during her sessions as well, that you need to use the correct zip +4. And if you don't have the appropriate mental health, specialties on file at that particular location, that could be a problem. I've seen that occur as well. So, you can try to contact the call center with the claim example and just say you're going round and round, and if they see that it's something that they can't see on your claim as being an issue with how you're billing, they would refer you out to the state's Office of Managed Care.
Okay. Next question was, a lot of times Medicare pays claims later than 90 days. But Medicaid would deny for timely filing. What should we do?
Again, as long as you use the appropriate late reason, you should be fine. So if you hear from Medicare today, and you did a service back in January, okay, it's definitely over 90 days old, so you need a late reason. So your question is, okay, which reason would I pick? So if you just heard from Medicare and you're showing us the Medicare explanation of benefits information on your claim, and you're billing us within 30 days of hearing from Medicare, you should be able to use delay reason 7.
Okay. This question is, I have a question in regards to IRA supervised billing. Are you familiar with that? Should I continue?
I'm looking for the question in the chat list here. I'm sorry.
I'll read. I have a question regarding the IRA supervised billing. How do we bill retainer days after 14 days? Do we bill as a zero rate or do we bill as a regular rate? If none of these, how should we bill?
Let's see. Off the top of my head, I don't have an answer for you on that one.
Okay.
So I think you'd have to contact somebody in policy.
Okay. So here's, how do we tell what front-end rejections we are having when we upload files right to the exchange?
Okay. Okay, I'm just rereading the question that's here in the chat. Okay. So how can we tell what front-end rejections we are having when we upload files right to the exchange? You should receive back a response file. So when you send your claim file to Medicaid through the exchange, you should be able to go back in there after you've transmitted it. You know, definitely by the next day, you should be able to go back in there and find what they call the 277CA. It's a response file that tells you, you know, what you sent to us, whether any portion of it was, you know, accepted or rejected, and it tells you some code numbers for what may have been rejected and why. The code numbers are HIPAA compliant code numbers. And during our presentation that we did last week on billing denials, we talked about a part of the website where you can look up the pre-adjudication information. So within that 277CA file that you could get from the exchange, you'd be able to go in and see what codes were returned for a particular claim if it rejected. And you could look those codes up in that pre-adjudication document that's out on emedme.org under HIPAA support crosswalks.
Okay. Then the next question here that I have is, how long does it take to convert from getting back PDF files to EDI 835 response files after the request was made? How long would it take to process the request to convert from PDF to an 835?
Oh, let me think about that one for a second. I'm just double checking a piece of information on that. So let me come back to that question.
Okay. The next one is another question around how to handle time delays. Insurance company has only sent 1-cent checks for several patients for over a year. When we have tried to write and call and argue for the rest of the payments that they claim they were errors on the claim. When we correct stated errors and resend them, they send back with a whole list of new errors. This delay is past the 90 days, then they refuse to pay since the claim is late. How do we resolve?
I'm going to reread that one to myself. I'm looking at the chat. Well, it seems like the provider is trying to say, and you know, I could be wrong, but the way I'm reading this, it sounds like the provider is trying to say that the other insurance they're having an issue with the primary insurance before they bill Medicaid, is what I'm hearing them say in this question. I could be wrong. And the thing is, they're going to have to resolve their issue with the primary payer before they send, before they send anything to us. I mean, theoretically, they could be sending us claims saying, okay, here's what the other insurance did. It paid me X, Y, Z, or this amount for these particular patients, and then we would process it based on the data that they did receive from the other insurance, and then they would have to replace the claim if the other insurance ended up, sending them more money or sending them less money after the fact. But if they're waiting, if they're holding off and they're waiting for the whole thing to be resolved with the other payer before they turn it in and send it to us, at the point where they end up getting, an EOB from the other payer saying this is how much they were paid, they should be able to use delay reason 7 on their claim if it's late. But again, if they did receive other insurance information all along, they could have been billing us and then just replacing the claims, when the other payer made changes. And when they replace claims that are old, they use delay reason 11.
Okay. Rita, based upon the number of questions that we've received, it's very unlikely that it's not more than we will not be able to address all the questions in the time that we have allotted. So I'm going to ask you, would you like to, what we can do is to gather all the questions that we have not yet answered and put answers to those and post them with the others, and that would give you a couple minutes to show some of the resources that you wanted to show folks. Would you like to proceed that way?
That's fine, sure.
Sure, I apologize. So we've had a ton of questions, and we're running up. We've only really have about 8 minutes left. We try not to run over with these, so we can capture all the questions that have been submitted during the chat. And Rita has been kind enough to be providing us with written answers to those questions. So any of the questions that we have not been able to get to today will be added to our frequently asked questions and will be posted on the CTAC website by next week. We apologize. We really had not anticipated that we'd be receiving so many questions. So why don't we close out the question and answer period for right now, and Rita, if you wanted to show us some of the resources that people would be, that you think would be very valuable for people to know where they are.
Okay. I was just going to back up before I switch over. I was going to say there was a question about the PDFs and how long it would take if you're getting PDF remits to switch to get an 835. And once we get, a good form from you, all, completed correctly, I'd say probably about 3 weeks from the time that form is submitted. So should be the turnaround time on that.
All right, great, thanks.
Okay. All righty. So I guess we'll, at this point, I think what we're going to do is we're going to display the EMEDNY website.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at this point, David, if you just let me know, can you see the EMEDNY website at this point?
Yes, we're good, Rita. Thank you.
Oh, okay. So a couple of things I just wanted to point out that came up a lot, and these are your resource tools. You really need to thoroughly understand the timely filing, and one place where you're going to go to do that is over here under Information. So if you go down here to Timely Filing Information, you'll notice that there are several documents at the top of this list. There's the information about submitting claims that are over 2 years old. There are limited circumstances under which you can do that. usually relates back to, something that, the state or one of its agents has changed, so maybe like a system issue that was just corrected or something like that. Then the main one here is submitting claims over 90 days from the date of service. That's an important document. It shows the timely filing rules, kind of gives an abbreviated version of some of this information. Then if you go down here, there's a guide to timely billing. And this particular document is important in that DOH posted this. It was a presentation that they did when they started editing for all of these timely filing reasons. And they answer a lot of questions in this frequently asked questions on delayed claim submission. So the majority of information is found here. If you go into this guide to timely filing or the frequently asked questions, most of the things that people are asking are kind of answered within these documents. The other place that you can also go is to the general, to your provider manual. So another place that contains information on timely filing in great detail is this information for all providers section of the provider manual. If you come here to general billing on this page and open up the PDF document that's here for general billing, you'll also see links to the same things we just talked about. So there are ways to get to this information all over the website. So if we open up the general billing information, you'll notice within this document, it talks about the detail of the policy. So it talks about each of these of the rules, where this is all coming from, how much time you have initially to send something in, how much time you have for each of the late reasons once they come within your control. So you need to read this through very carefully, and then you have to apply their information to your particular scenario. Every scenario is different. So again, as we stated earlier, the Department of Health, in their frequently asked questions, came right out and said, you've got to figure this out. We won't be able to tell you which reason to use. We can kind of back you into it by talking you through it. So as I said, and you should be doing this yourself, know all the details of the claims history and ask yourself questions, as you're looking at the delay reasons. Okay, does delay reason 1 fit? Does delay reason 2 fit based on these descriptions? So you'll notice here, it lists the times when, example of when it would be good and times when it wouldn't be good to use a particular reason. So you really have to read these through very carefully. And then as you get out of this document, you'll see it goes through more information about the policy on 2-year-old claims as well. And replacements, which need delay reason 11. The other place I wanted to take a look at here is the pre-adjudication information. So if we come over here to eMedMe HIPAA support, someone had asked questions about the rejected claim files or claim data. So if you come over here to crosswalks, you can go in here, and if something is rejected at the front end and it isn't going to show up on your remittance statement because it hit a pre-adjudication edit, you can go to this pre-adjudication claim crosswalk, and you can actually look up the code numbers. So what you see is a chart, and within the chart, on the left-hand side are the code numbers that you're seeing come back on that 277CA file. And in the center, you see, a description of what that rejection is. So if you were to see, for instance, let's take one here, and they show them at both the claim level, which is the first 3 columns, and then the line level errors. So if we were to say that, you hit an edit that said A7, 562, and 71, if those were the rejection codes that were coming back on the 277CA, or when you check the EPACE's claim status, that would mean that, this was rejected because the NPI of the attending provider on the claim was invalid. So you'd have to fix that and send it in, because this would never, this particular claim would never show up on your remittance statement. So those were a couple of the main places I wanted to point out here. Also, you know, do make sure that you take a look at the ICD-10 information that's appearing. If we go back to the home page, and when you first sign into this page, you'll get a big pop-up. And here's a link to all of the ICD-10 information that's posted here. So this is a really good place to start. You should really be testing or checking with your vendor to make sure they are testing with, you know, data that, you know, is applicable to you. So there's a frequently asked questions section here. There's links to other training sources that are out there about coding. So I would read through the documents that you see here and go on from there to be ready by October 1st.
Great.
That's all I have.
That's a lot. Thank you very much. So we're ran out of time here today. I'd first of all like to, on behalf of the CTAC team and certainly for the providers around New York State, to thank Rita for the time and effort she put into this presentation. I'd like to remind folks that we'll be gathering all the questions that answers, those questions that we answered and those that we were not able to get to today. They will be posted on the CTAC website by the end of next week. Please feel free to go to the site and start taking a look at those. These presentations were recorded. They will also be posted there for reference. And as I mentioned earlier, the CTAC team is putting together their fall schedule. And as those offerings become available, we'll be posting them also. Here you'll see the eMedNey website. There is a large amount of information sitting there. There's certainly a great deal of information sitting out on the OMH website also. I would like to remind folks, and a couple of times in both presentations, OMH and Gwen and Rita have talked about sending questions in. Please remember, be as specific as you possibly can. It will be much easier for them to help you if they know exactly what company, insurance company, what claims, specific information. So I think that that's all we have here for today. Again, thank you very much, Rita. Thank you for everybody for attending this. And we hope that it was helpful, and keep in touch with us about what will be offered in the future. And everybody have a great weekend. Thank you very much.